and welcome to the Waterloo Region Electric Vehicle Association Electrifying News for March of 2022. Joining me today as normal, we have Mr. Ian Graham joining us from downtown Kitchener. How are you today, sir?
Hanging in, waiting for spring. I don't think it's coming. It's still too cold. They teases us, right? Like last weekend, we got a couple of sunny days and too much dampness for me.
I hope you're wrong, because I am really looking forward to spring.
Yeah, it's that time of
we
year.
had that last week, and it was like unbelievable. So hoping more of that comes along.
Yeah.
Also joining us, Mr. Eric Stevens from Listowel. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, Mark.
Excellent.
Yeah. I was just commenting that, weather this time of year is like a light switch. It's winter, spring, winter, spring, winter, spring. So,
Yeah. We're definitely looking forward to some warmer weather. You get that little hint of it every once in a while, and you think, oh, I can hold on a little bit longer, and then it snows the next day.
Yes.
I bought new summer tires. They were on sale, for my Model 3, and I'm anxious to get these things on, and just see what they're like and everything. But I'll do it this week. Oh no, the weather's not looking good.
Yeah.
Next week. Still not looking good.
Well, as soon as you put them on, we're getting a foot of snow. So
exactly.
Yeah, get it over with now, Ian. Get out there tonight.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, we've got another month's worth of EV news that we're going to share with you tonight. If you haven't already, please give us a little thumbs up on the video. Press that subscribe button, and then you'll be alerted every time we add a new video to the channel. But with that, we'll get started, and Ian's going to lead the way here.
Okay, this is a big one. Electric vehicle registrations have really shot up in Canada, and this is just awesome to see. Now, it's interesting, of course. I think all three of us have probably just been getting inquiries from many friends, family, people we don't even know who maybe walk up to us at a parking lot and say, hey, you got an electric vehicle and gas prices are absolutely crazy. How do you like it? So I think that, we're getting lots of that as well. But this is really great to see. How many were registered in the first 9 months of 2021? 65,000. And that's including plug-in hybrid, which is great. And I like the fact that there's the stat of 80% of Canadians were open to buying an electric vehicle. And especially this is before the spike in gas prices. So that 80% now, what is that? Is it 99% now? It's interesting how this is really affecting people with these gas prices.
Yeah, and this is good to see that this was before the spike in gas prices, as mentioned. This was in the first 9 months of 2021. That number that Ian mentioned, 65,000 plus, that was about 5% in that time period. And of course, previous year to date, previously, it was 3% in 2020, and it was just under 3% in 2019. So we are moving in a positive way, and this Stats Canada article outlined that they can see the growth pattern happening. Now, as mentioned, with gas prices spiking this month, that is going to push this narrative even harder. You're going to get people, we've even talked about previous articles about Canadians thinking that they're ready to move to EV for their next vehicle. And then, of course, all this talk about prices hitting record highs for gasoline, I am sure many families are now, that's pushed them over the edge, and they're now looking for an EV actively to move to reduce the pain that they're seeing at the pumps currently. So I hope to see that as we get Stats Canada information into 2022 and beyond, that 5% is even going to go higher Canada-wide, and that will be a plus for the EV movement. I remember, guys, when when it wasn't even 1%. So getting up to 5% is a big deal, and I think the next big deal is going to be getting into those double digits, a 10 or 11%. We're really going to see the snowball growing.
Yeah, I think this whole thing has there's a whole host of things now that are contributing to this now. Part of it is now there's a lot more EV options available in the market now too. A lot of new vehicles, a lot more options. Some of them more affordable options as well too that are starting to make their way into the market, which is great. High gas prices, of course, are motivating people, and I think now even geopolitical considerations are starting to come into effect now with things like the whole situation in Russia and Ukraine right now, and stuff like that, where people are now sitting there saying, hey, we need to get off fossil fuels from that standpoint as well too. I think the biggest challenge going forward today is not the demand side. Now it's actually producing it, getting the supply chain in place and producing enough parts and components to build enough EVs to meet that demand. So that's going to be the big challenge for the next 2 or 3 years, I think.
And just to add what Eric has indicated just tonight on the local television channel, there was a demonstration in downtown Waterloo asking people to get off fossil fuels. They were aiming at the banks and others that invest in the fossil fuel economy to start to diversify out of it, to allow the clean energy to start replacing it. And they were going on the side of things of what is this doing to our earth? What is it doing to our health? And what is it doing to our families? So that's kind of interesting that this movement is gaining on several fronts.
Yes, and and if we're going to talk about banks and, for that matter, inflation, something that I've been discussing with people who are involved with budgeting, finances, all that type of stuff. I've constantly mentioned to them is like, you get into an electric vehicle, you're protecting yourself against inflation because the cost of even hydro going up is not going to be anywhere close to what it is with what we're seeing with gas prices. And of course, you protect yourself even more with inflation. Eric and I both have solar, which charges our car. And for us, it's like, really the cost of energy, the cost of gas, everything, it's like that's stuff that we just don't care about anymore. And we've been doing it for, a good, at least for myself, 7 years, Eric, almost longer. And that's something else that, people really need to kind of start taking a look at that pocketbook and protecting themselves for the future, not only for the planet, as you mentioned with the protest at the, Waterloo Town Square, but also just for themselves to take control of their own energy needs. Yeah,
taking care of their own energy, de-risking yourself from future inflation costs, all that kind of stuff. You're basically putting the power in your own hands now. So literally and metaphorically.
Literally. Yeah. Exactly. All right. And to that, as Mark had mentioned, we need to get the things going to build this stuff. So Eric, inform us a little bit more on this. This is a big one.
Yeah. So speaking of supply chain, Stellantis, which is the third largest car maker in the world. A lot of people haven't heard of Stellantis, but Stellantis is a relatively new merger that merged between PSA and Fiat Chrysler Automotive. So it's this mega merger between two huge automotive conglomerates. PSA is largely a European company, and then FCA, which was sort of half European, half North American, merged into this big monster now that is Stellantis. And basically now they're making a big EV push and now they're looking at building battery factories in North America. And this new battery factory is going to be located, one of them is going to be located in the greater Windsor area, just outside in a suburb called Tecumseh. And it's going to be a 45 gigawatt hour facility, which is a pretty good size facility. Comparing that's similar in size to the Tesla Nevada gigafactory, and $5 billion Canadian or $4 billion US facility that will employ up to 3,000 people. This is huge, and not only that, but this is just the facility, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of suppliers and feeder plants that are based off this as well too. So this is massive for the economy in Windsor. The economy in Windsor in the past has taken a hit, but Windsor is known as a very powertrain centric facility. There's a lot of engine manufacturing and stuff that happens in Windsor as well too. So it's nice seeing that the transition is happening from gas to electric, and it's happening in Windsor. Windsor's getting a piece of that pie, and Ontario's getting a piece of that pie. So.
Yeah, so it'll like you said, Eric, with the feeder plants, it'll be interesting to see with some of those partners that are going to be contributing to the building of the battery plant here. Also, it would be nice to see, as you said, Windsor's highly centric around powertrains. It would be great to see a couple of EV motor type operations come to Windsor as well. So getting some more of that powertrain into Windsor would be great to see some building of those as well. That hasn't been announced, but the province of Ontario and of course the federal government, EVs have been high on their list as they're trying to nail down different manufacturers to either produce parts or produce the actual EV vehicles in Ontario in order to push our automotive segment more towards the renewable type scenarios. So congratulations to landing this. We don't, as taxpayers, we really don't know what the final cost has been, because they're keeping that quiet because they're going after other manufacturers as well, and they don't want to tip their hat as to what type of incentives they're offering. So the EV market is highly competitive as different countries, provinces, and states vie for some of this manufacturing work.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting. That they didn't release any of those numbers, and they were pressed on that, but nothing was said about that. Speaking of numbers, I thought it was, they were saying that this plant's as big as having 121 hockey arenas, I think is what they had compared it to. So it's big, that's for sure. It's awesome that it, yeah?
I was going to say it's a 213 acre site.
Yeah, good size for sure. But it's awesome that, you're employing that many more people. And when we talked about, the potential of going from 5% of EVs to double digits, 10%, I think a big part of this is getting the manufacturing here in Canada, and that the workers, they're probably some of the best word of mouth as well, because they're going to be curious and interested as well on the whole electric vehicle, especially if they've never done it before and they've gone from being on a, say, traditional gas car manufacturing plant to now this. I think we're going to see that's part of the transition as well, is getting that knowledge to them, and that's going to be really good to have that here as well.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Ian. I mean, one of the things you see from people in the oil and gas industry today is some of them are so hung up on it because it's part of their livelihood. Many people work in that field today or supply parts to that field today, so they have a vested interest in protecting it. But obviously, if we start moving to more EV-based infrastructure, people who are working here are going to have now a vested interest in pushing EVs and getting that moving forward as well too. And it helps diversify us away from oil from that perspective as well. And this, I think this bodes well too, because Stellantis has 2 assembly plants here in Ontario as well, one in Brampton and one here in Windsor as well. And I think that bodes well for future product for those facilities as well. So,
yeah, so it's good. It's a new real positive for the future. Who knows, might lead to yet another casino in Windsor. You never know. But we'll see what happens that way. All right. So I find this is always interesting when brand recognition, marketing. It's kind of like, again, taking a page from Apple, and when they started putting their stores into areas that the public could get access to, like in a regular mall and that. And it's now, we're seeing this now with electric vehicles. So Lucid is got a Toronto studio open now, and it's in Yorkdale Shopping Center, where Tesla is as well. In fact, Apple Store and Tesla are like kind of right across from each other, if I remember. And the other cool thing with Lucid doing these stores, and a great way again for them to present to the public, you know, their brand, their product, all that stuff. But just like when you used to be able to buy a Model S and a Model X from Tesla and have access to the supercharger network for free, Lucid's now doing something similar, but with Electrify Canada and giving 2 years of complimentary charging. So, you know, it's another sort of incentive for the customer to consider their cars. But I find it interesting. You know, it's just this whole different way of marketing. You know, because it's not like you see Tesla or Lucid on television with advertising. You know, it's going right to the customer.
Yeah, it's another. It's a, you know, obviously a Lucid car is an expensive car. They're highly expensive. I think the starting price in Canada is over $160,000 Canadian.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, it's not for the masses, but we have seen the start of you know, Tesla, for example. They started with a high price car to begin with, and then they were able to, with volume, work that down into a little bit less expensive vehicle, and then they halved that later with the Model 3. So it's a manufacturing play that they know that they will not have volume to start with. So why not produce an expensive vehicle, go after the top dollar, and see if that can help finance the company so they could start making, you know, entry into the lower priced EV market. Obviously, Tesla has done that somewhat. We'd like to certainly see more of that. And I wish Lucid success in order to do that as well, because we know we need more and more EVs at lower prices in order to affect all families to be able to afford an EV and pick up a car that suits them for what they want to use that vehicle for. So not too high on, you know, looking at a $160,000 vehicle, but I hope this can lead to Lucid being able to get some volume and being able to move into some lower priced EVs with the success of a higher priced EV.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no delusions that Lucid is a high-end brand and they're trying to market themselves as that. I don't know if they're gonna fall down the same game path as trying to go to mass market. I think their intent is to stay high-end for the near future. Their play in like Yorkdale Mall is sort of within that playbook, I think. Setting up a shop there and it's sort of the display model there. I think they're trying to keep that sort of idea of a high-end product. So I don't think they're looking at diluting their brand to a lower-end product, and I think they're looking to maintain that luxury marquee. I think they want to see themselves as the Mercedes of the electric world, and I think that's what they're going after.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, just stick to high end, you know, high end customer, and you know, keep the product line simple.
Yeah,
for that matter as well.
Yeah, and you know, Lucid has launched a very good product. It is one of the longest ranged EVs in the market. It's also one of the fastest charging EVs in the market. It can charge at over 300 kilowatts, and it has a fairly flat charging curve as well too. And the range is phenomenal. Like, I mean, it has nearly 800 kilometers of range. I mean, the vehicle is crazy from that standpoint. But as everybody said, it's also incredibly expensive. And you know, there's a few things that might be not so good with it. You know, the major investor in this is the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, which, you know, some people have concerns with and stuff as well too. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is trying to diversify its portfolio and has been investing heavily in solar companies and EV companies such as Lucid. So that'll be interesting as well too.
It is interesting that this is it's the 23rd studio that they've opened. That's quite a number. I was kind of surprised that there's been that many opened in North America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, But yeah, if you go to sit in one of those cars, make sure you've not wearing clothing with too many sharp edges on it. You don't want to,
You just bought the display model, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you scratch the paint. That'll be like 10 grand. All right. So we got a couple of slides, and again, just more interesting news for Ontario.
Yeah, it kind of goes
good to
along.
see.
It kind of goes along with the Stellantis story. This is Ontario. I guess they're trying to consolidate what we have mineral-wise, and what they're trying to do is focus on understanding the different manufacturers I guess the mining companies, the types of materials that is available in Ontario, and how much of it there is, and the marrying of that information with manufacturers that they're setting up, like, for example, Stellantis in the south. Mm-hmm. So the Ford government, it indicated that they're going to invest some money in order to focus on supporting critical mineral explorations. They're going to be enhancing the geoscience information, where you're collecting what stocks of minerals are available, what areas of the country mining could be increased to get those different stockpiles of minerals, and improving the regulatory framework so that business can move quicker and find new markets faster. And they're also looking to invest in the research and building of the economic development opportunities. So that's that connecting from the supply chain to the purchasers. And finally, they're looking at growing the labor supply for the mining sector, the ones that would actually extract these materials out of the earth. So this is a good plan, in my opinion, being able to take stock of what Ontario has, the volume that we're going to be able to get access to, how long it'll take us to get certain volumes of different minerals, and then shopping that out to the North American market, to places like Stellantis and others that are starting to set up battery facilities, different manufacturing plants that are supporting EVs, maybe even into Quebec, other provinces that are doing this as well. Because whether or not a battery plant or EV manufacturing location is in whatever province, they're all going to require those minerals in order to make those battery packs and EVs complete. So taking stock of what we have and being able to address who we can sell that to and make them aware that these products are available in Ontario is a great first start to start bridging those supply chains together, and allowing different people in the industry to know that Ontario has some of the materials that they're going to require.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The only comment I have to make is I wish we did this a few years ago. Basically, it's a great thing. It's too bad we weren't a little further out in front of this, but Ontario and Canada, for that matter, is rich in minerals, and a lot of the minerals that are used today in manufacturing EV and EV batteries. And we have a critical role to play in that. Canada is seen globally as a safe country to invest and a safe country to do business with, and close to the supply chain. A huge portion of the world's cars are produced in northeastern United States and in Ontario. So being that close to the supply chain has its advantages, and we have a huge manufacturing expertise in this area as well too, and huge mining expertise that we can lean on to help develop that. And with some of the geopolitical issues again coming back to light with China, Russia, and the situations there, those are mineral-rich regions area, but Canada's seen as a safe place, and it's a good place to build a foundation for your supply chain.
Yeah, Yeah, I think, see what's in our country and being able to supply for the companies in our country and protecting, workers' jobs. And it's excellent. This is, I think, is one of the smartest things to do and to tap into, and keep the jobs within Canada, whether that's in the actual exploration of the minerals or the actual manufacture as well. So it's very smart. I think that we're looking at doing this.
Yeah,
Now,
what came to mind really quickly when we started to hear that nickel was becoming a resource that is required, that is in short supply. I don't know why people's, immediately my thoughts went to Sudbury, like the big nickel.
yep.
Like you couldn't, have a more perfect setup for the city and industries in Sudbury that mine nickel. Like that has got to be something that even as a kid from a city down here, everybody knows that Sudbury produces nickel, and the EVs need the nickel a great deal now, and it's in short supply, and we're seeing price spikes because of it. So yeah, I think that getting on board with letting people know that nickel exists in as Eric said, a safe country of Canada to do business with, let the world know. Let's get it rolling.
Yeah, and I can say
exactly.
I can say from firsthand to my company too, where nickel is definitely in short supply right now. So we use quite a bit of nickel, and it's hurting us right now. So.
Wow. So in regards also to Ontario, we also have investing of $91 million for EV chargers. And so now, a quick little recap on this stuff here. 91 million, installing at rest stops, hockey arenas, carpool lots, and parks. Great, awesome. But they haven't really said exactly where directly those chargers will go to. So City of Kitchener, are we talking about hockey arena like the Odd? That would make sense to me. But then you also got Rim Park, which is very highly utilized as well, has multiple rinks in it. So all this type of stuff, we're not too sure where this is going. That being said, with tonight's podcast, it's interesting. We've been talking a lot about, what's happening in Ontario and some of these programs that are happening between, hey, we got EV manufacturing happening for the batteries. We've got chargers coming in. We've got, looking out for the minerals, the resources. And this is all coming from a guy who canceled the $14,000 EV rebate and actually pulled chargers out from the GO train stations. So, sudden about face. I mean, it's great. I'm happy that we're seeing this, but it's at the same time it's a bit difficult for us in the the EV those of us who have been pushing it for quite some time to kind of think, okay, so now you're back on board with us. So it's interesting.
Can you say spring election?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, that's the big one. We all know that's all a big part of it, But even with the spring election, how many people though, like, when you compare us in Ontario of gas drivers versus EV drivers, there's only a small percentage of us who are like, oh, hey, this is awesome. Ford has actually come to light on all this stuff. And how many gas drivers like, what's he doing? So yeah, it's about the election I'm sure to a point, but I still question kind of that, percentages.
Yeah, I think there's a few things going on behind the scenes as well too. I mean, this is good to see, but at the same time, again, a few years late. But I think there's, as I mentioned, there's a few things going on behind the scene. I think partially, when Doug Ford was first elected into government, he had a pretty anti-EV mandate. He was catering to his base at the time.
Yeah.
But now the problem is Ontario is heavy in automotive manufacturing, and that is a heavy portion of our manufacturing. And the big manufacturing companies are going, hey, we're changing to EV. Honda is committed to going all EV. General Motors is committed to going all EV. Stellantis is now making big investments. Ford's making big investments. These are the huge manufacturers in Ontario for cars. And the problem is now we had this anti-EV government. And I think somebody in the background just sort of said, oh, wait a minute. We stand to lose billions of dollars and tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of jobs if we don't start investing in this industry and taking this seriously. So I think they finally saw the writing in the wall, and I think it smacked them in the face to say, hey, we got to do something. And finally, they've gotten up off their butts to do that. And now with the election coming up, it's almost a must-have, because if they didn't do anything, it was going to get thrown in their face in the election campaign. So,
yeah, totally agree with you on that, Eric. It's like, it's a real about face, but I think you're right. Probably somebody within his party kind of probably showed him the numbers. And I wouldn't be surprised even the auto manufacturers themselves probably came out and said, hey, guess what? If we stick with you on the gas end of things and we miss out on this whole, future of EVs where everything is going, we can't do this.
Yeah.
We just can't.
I think some of the manufacturers came out and said, hey, we've got billions of dollars we're looking to spend. Do you want us to put it in the US, Mexico, or Canada?
Yeah.
And, that might have woke him up.
I think one of the signs that was stunning to me from being on the outside is when you start hearing that some of the big three are shutting down their engine R&D centers, that they're no longer trying to make better motors that run on fossil fuel. And they've given up. They're going to be just using what they have left, what they have on the drawing board already. And that tells me that's pretty plain to see. If you stop innovating in a certain segment, it's going to get stale, and you're eventually going to drop it. So that was one of the telltale signs that I saw about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And that's not too far back, actually.
No.
Yeah, on that. But there you go. All right, so good news, anyways, for us in Ontario here. And there's that lovely snow again. So, anyways, this is a really interesting electric bus. The way it looks, it's a different kind of a shape to me. But is there like a frunk in there, or
I don't know, honestly. So yeah, this is an interesting bus. So yeah, Letenda, they claim to be a purpose-built bus for electrification. So a lot of manufacturers today that have buses in the market, they've taken their existing platforms and put an EV powertrain in them. This one here, now they say it's a purpose-built bus. It's actually started by some engineers that worked for BRP, Bombardier Recreational Products, and they came across and started up this company. So they used a lot of the expertise they've gotten in recreational products, some of them from the aerospace industry as well too, to build the aluminum frame for the bus to make it a lot lighter. So this is a much lighter bus. Their powertrain is actually being borrowed from Cummins. So Cummins has an EV powertrain system, and they're using that in this bus. And they say it's also been built for winter. Basically, they've designed it with a radiant heating floor system in the floor of the bus to heat it, and that as well too, to make it more efficient for winter use. And it's also designed for more urban type applications. This isn't a large bus. It's a 9 meter long bus, about 30 feet. And so it's designed for sort of, I would say, even smaller communities with a small urban metro bus service and system. So it certainly might have some good unique applications.
I think I like the fact that these guys, designed from scratch, like, and they probably looked at this as like, what's the current problems that we have with buses? Where can we improve them? I love the fact that most of this bus is aluminum. So 20% lighter makes a big difference right off the get-go. That's a huge 20% is a huge number. And especially too, when you're putting like the battery aspect of it in there. So you're trying to get any chance to make something lighter, go for it. But I think the winter one's the big one for me. That I like the fact that they really looked at winter conditions and tried to make this as efficient as possible for that, knowing that when the warmer weather kind of comes, this bus is just going to fly. 250 minimum, 250 kilometer range. I'm looking at this going like, wow, can you imagine, not that it'll ever happen, but if the 401 had a actual bus lane where cars couldn't go into it, and you put these type of buses on here, how many more people would take this, even over probably the train? 250 kilometer range is taking you to Toronto and back, no problem. And then it gets charged up. And I just think what this company's been really smart with looking at the problems and redesigning it from that point.
Yeah, my hat's off to them for the design, but of course the bus industry is a tough one to be in. There's not too many players in it. They're gonna have a fight on their hands to get a successful candidate that is cost effective and can operate in different communities. Because as Eric mentioned, it's kind of a half or three-quarter bus as opposed to large areas like KW where we've got 40-plus foot buses. And if you get into Toronto, you've got the articulating buses, which are even longer. So this is kind of, it's a niche for a certain size of community or a certain size of route that this bus would be on because of its size. I hope they can find a niche for themselves, but it's going to be difficult. But I look forward to seeing their progress.
Yeah, they could be hitting the van life community as well for all the young people who are fed up with like not being able to buy a home. They can basically buy this bus and travel wherever they want. You never know.
Yeah, I think they also mentioned they're targeting things like airport shuttles and possibly hotel shuttle type service and stuff as well too for certain applications, or convention centers, and even smaller communities like Stratford or Chatham. They typically use smaller buses like this, 30-foot buses. So that's kind of where the application I think they're looking to target at.
Now I think about it, the front end reminds me of the trains. The front end that they used to like get rid of cattle in case they were on the tracks, so they would push the cattle aside. So you never know. Maybe this is a similar design. So, anyways, this is it's a great to see, and I wish them all the success and that and if anything too, from the redesign of everything, that the ideas and the technology could be translated to other things. To be learned with electric vehicles as well.
Yep.
Okay. So a while back, Hertz made a deal with Tesla to get 100,000 Model 3s, and now they're looking to put in their Model Ys into the fleet as well. And one thing I found interesting as well is that they're also looking to offer these vehicles to Uber drivers. So if you don't actually have a car, you can actually rent a car from Hertz and be an Uber driver. And I'm not sure exactly how that works out financially, but it's an option for an Uber driver to get a vehicle and utilize it for work. So Tom Brady's now come back out of retirement, and he was actually in one of the commercials advertising this. So I'd be interested in seeing if they're going to have another commercial. Oh, hey, we got Model Y, so we pulled you out of retirement to do this commercial now. And anyways, I think for Hertz, it's another sign of where everything is going. And they're wanting to be on top of all of this. And I think also, Tesla is a brand name that's very recognizable. And I think also there's a lot of people who would rent the car because they're just interested in what Tesla's about. They've heard probably stuff about it quite a bit. And I think Hertz is making a smart move with this.
Yeah, there's a number of different locations that have been renting it. There's been some YouTubers that have gone out specifically to rent a Model 3 just to see about the experience, how the rental company Hertz deals with it, and what kind of instruction is given out, and just the semantics of how it's actually given to the renter, and how they operate that vehicle, bring it back, who's checking the vehicle when it comes back for charge, those kind of things. So it's a new thing for Hertz, and they're trying to reinvent themselves coming out of bankruptcy. So it's a great way to differentiate themselves from the other rental fleets that are out there. And I think they're getting some legs on this. Basically, they're getting some free advertising, and they're getting their name put with EV in the same sentence. And they believe it's going to be helpful for them, and I think it will be too over the long haul.
Yeah, more options are always good, and Tesla Model Y is a good sized family vehicle, so people who are going on a vacation somewhere or something like that, and they want to rent an EV for a week, they can try it out with their family and get an idea what it's like to actually live with an EV for a bit before they dip their toes in the water before they jump in. So
yeah.
I just want to know if they just always lock the car into chill mode so you don't get that acceleration. It's
according to people that have made some videos, it's wide open, so you can use it on whatever setting you'd like.
Is that including autopilot?
None of them have autopilot. Like none of them have. I'm sorry, none of them have FSD. I haven't had any. But the normal lane restricted autopilot that comes with the car's standard is available on them.
Well, that's still pretty good. It's not like they can just let go of the wheel forever and let the car drive itself. They still got to touch it every 15 seconds or so.
The car's still going to remind the driver if they remove their hands from the wheel. So it's got the normal safety features in there.
Yeah, so that's good, right on. And I think it's a good thing actually for people to get an experience of the whole thing and on that as well. All right, so here's some fun stuff. This is something I think all of us are curious about with each year of car releases, is like what's the actual mileage that they're getting with the battery pack, kilowatt wise. What are they getting per kilometer?
Yeah, and this is something that many people don't realize when they get involved with an EV, is that there's some wildly different efficiency ratios for vehicles out there. If you've got a heavy vehicle, if you got a vehicle that maybe has been converted from an internal combustion vehicle to just put in a battery and a electric drivetrain, you're not going to get the same efficiencies that manufacturers build into a specific EV from the ground up. So this particular article from Inside EVs, which of course all the articles that we're talking about, there are links in the notes area that you can click on to read into further. And I would certainly encourage you to go take a look at this particular one, because they actually publish a list of vehicles that are available in 2022, and they correspond with the efficiency of those vehicles. So we all know that gasoline efficiency in Ontario here is basically on a chart of number of liters per 100 kilometers. So you can understand if you're buying a truck or a sedan, there are differences in aerodynamics, and of course that affects the vehicle's how much gasoline they're burning. Well, in EVs, they're basically doing a similar type thing where they're saying how many watt hours are you burning per mile. So this particular efficiency chart is showing a number. So for example, the top of the chart, the one that's the most efficient, is a 2021 Hyundai Ioniq Electric. And that particular car has a medium of 253 watt hours per mile. City, of course, is a little bit less. Highways a little bit more, but the average is a 253. So this chart of looks like about 50 different vehicles in the particular chart I have here on this article, it goes through the different vehicles. So like the top of the list, the top 5 are the Hyundai, as mentioned, a Tesla Model 3 rear-wheel drive, the Lucid Air that we talked about earlier with the new showroom, Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive, another Lucid Air, and the list goes down, moving actually from Teslas to Lucid to Teslas to Lucid, and then looks like about number 8, Chevy Bolt EV. So this is a good chart to look over. But I do caution people to realize that if you move to an EV, you're upping the efficiency of your drive by a large factor. When we're looking at between the top of this list and the bottom of the list, it's a doubling. So at the top we have a 253. At the bottom of the list we have a 535. So these, it's a wide range of different EVs, but all of these, hands down, no matter what's on this list, all of these beat gasoline vehicles by a wide margin. So I don't want to get people too obsessed with what the efficiency ratings are on these EVs. Moving to any EV is definitely going to save energy in a huge amount over a gasoline vehicle. What we're looking at here in this list are strictly EVs and some of the differences in the watt hours per mile that have been shown here. And of course, we've got some of those comparisons that vehicles that are built specifically to be an EV, and then we've got those other vehicles that aren't specifically being an EV, where they may have different powertrains that the manufacturer puts in these vehicles depending on what the customer wants. So it is kind of interesting to see the numbers up front, but again, moving to an EV will give you a great efficiency over any gasoline motor. But this chart is kind of interesting. It's a little bit of, I guess you would say, inside baseball, where you can actually see some of the differences in these manufactured EVs and some that aren't, and what the difference is when it comes to energy consumption.
Yeah, and to add to those comments, basically physics applies to gas cars and EV cars as well too. So obviously, when you take vehicles like in the gas world, you take a Toyota Camry and you compare it to a Toyota Sequoia. A Toyota Sequoia is going to use twice as much gas as that Camry. And the same thing's going to happen in EV world. A large, huge EV is going to use more than double the energy of a small EV, like a Hyundai Ioniq. But if you take the example of something like the new Hummer EV that's out there today, 9,000-pound Hummer EV, its equivalent efficiency is still almost pretty much as good as a hybrid Toyota Prius. So so a behemoth electric vehicle like that still gets very efficient energy compared to some of the hybrids in the market. The only thing I caution with the EPA efficiency comparison is that it's hard to compare between models and this type of thing, because a lot of people assume that the EPA efficiency test is the same, and it is not actually. There are different EPA efficiency tests, and different manufacturers use different tests depending on what the outcomes they're trying to achieve. And even within that, different manufacturers can do things to tweak their efficiency to eke out different models. Some manufacturers aim low intentionally. Manufacturers such as Volkswagen Group and their Porsche models, they intentionally lowball their numbers. And they intentionally have better efficiency than they actually publish, because they want to. They believe in under-promising and over-delivering. That's kind of a German mindset with a lot of their manufacturers. And some manufacturers are out there and they're trying to eke out every little piece of efficiency they can and publish the absolute highest number possible. So that, and the efficiency numbers in this list, that can swing by as much as 10 to 15%. In some cases, even higher than that. So it might even be 20% with some manufacturers, where the real world efficiency might actually be 20% different than what's published there, higher or lower. So I just take that list with a little bit of a grain of salt. If somebody comes out and says, "Hey, my EV is 10% more efficient than yours," well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But take that as a grain of salt.
But certainly, you would agree that if you get like a Hummer EV, obviously you're going to get a lot less efficiency because of the size and the weight of the vehicle.
It's physics,
just
yeah.
It's physics, right? You can't escape it.
It's a 9,000 pound wide brick. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you compare that Hummer to an H2 or H3 that is gasoline, you're beating its efficiency by 6 times with the EV version.
Absolutely.
So if you compare the vehicle to what it came from or what's a comparable electric vehicle to gasoline vehicle, certainly those 6 times or 5 times the efficiency are always in play.
Mm-hmm.
This list is strictly EVs competing against each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting, Eric, when you brought up about the Hummer EV and then you brought up the Prius in terms of like the efficiency aspect, because when the Prius kind of first came out, there was this sort of thing going around about, wow, the Hummer EV is actually more environmentally friendly because the build of the Prius with the batteries and everything else is yada 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 that much more, and yet now we've got a Hummer EV that is electric and is just as efficient in that respect.
Yeah, and now of course that Hummer EV, even though the efficiency is the same, you can now refuel it with a renewable energy versus gasoline in a Prius. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it's just showing how far we've come. Like it's another indicator of the choices that are now available and becoming more available to everyone, North American wide, as the days go along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So here we go. More stuff in Canada.
Yes. So again, back to the whole supply chain theme and what's going on here today as well too. And we talked about this. Mark and I talked about this in our last podcast. That GM was looking to build a cathode active material facility, and at the time, people were suspecting that it was going to be in Canada, possibly Ontario, possibly Quebec. Well, it's now confirmed. They are building one in Quebec. The cathode active material is this is basically taking raw materials from, maybe Northern Ontario, turning it into cathode active material, which then can be fed into a battery plant that makes battery cells. So this is another cog in the wheel of the supply chain. And, making cathode active material is an energy intensive process. It takes a lot of power and electricity to do that. So it makes sense to locate this in a place like Quebec where they have low cost, relatively clean hydroelectric power. So, and that's what's happening here. And, there's the General Motors POSCO. And I think BASF also made an announcement. They're doing a cathode active material facility in the same place. So I imagine this is probably part of, there's going to be a greater facility with many partners, I think, that's going to be involved in this for supplying the EV industry in North America.
Mm-hmm. I think basically more and more Canada is just looking like, it's interesting because Canada's never really taken to EVs. It's been a while. We've kind of been the laggard for years in all of this, especially, you compare it to like a country like Norway. But now it's interesting, like we're grabbing the bull by the horns, so to speak. We're not only are we going to, become that much more putting the EVs out, but we're being that much more responsible about everything in terms of getting what we need to make the electric vehicles. And it's interesting. It's Canada. I think we're going to see that turn happen over the next few years as these industries and manufacturers start to come online. It's like Canada's now, I think, going to start charging ahead. Pun intended. But yeah, we've been laggards with the whole electric vehicle thing, and it's interesting now we're jumping ahead.
Yeah, just more of the writings on the wall, right? People are starting to jump and say, we're going to be left behind completely. We're going to lose jobs. We're going to lose manufacturing if we don't get on this now. And like Eric and Ian have said, we're probably a little bit late to the party, and it's something we should have been planning on earlier. But now it seems that everyone is charging forward with this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to your analogy there, Ian, about the, when people were talking about how the old gas Hummer was more efficient than say a Toyota Prius, they're doing some weird math to try to show supply chain and stuff to do that. But the thing is, the nice thing about that is you can clean up the supply chain. The supply chain might be dirty, but as you shorten the supply chain and put it in areas where there's clean power and stuff like that, now all of a sudden the EVs become more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And of course, and to that one more step, how we charge our electric vehicles. That's something I constantly, really getting tired of seeing, and especially, unfortunately to our, Alberta, we're still using coal, and even to our neighbors to the south that are still burning coal. And then there's that whole like, oh, but your electric vehicles, running off of dirty fossil fuels still with the coal. And it's kind of like, well, why is that? Why are you guys still running on coal? Ontario's been off it for over 10 years. And that's sort of always been my kind of rebuttal back. It's like, if we can do it, it's been 10 plus years. What's your excuse, And for that matter, it's interesting. Just read an article talking about, renewable energy and the energy aspect, just with Texas. They had that big winter ice storm, which did freeze some of the turbines, but funny enough, it finally came out that it actually affected their gas plants a lot as well. And so when it comes down to, doing clean energy for the electric vehicles and getting all that sort of stuff out, yeah, we still got Mother Nature to kind of deal with certain things, but gas is not always the be all end all with all this stuff too. It finally came out that the gas power plants were having issues as well.
Oh, yeah, we know that firsthand, actually. My company and business is heavily involved in the issues that Texas had as a result of that cold weather. So we're quite aware of the intricacies and the problems that they didn't properly winterize their infrastructure. And certainly the gas supply was the major contributor there. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so. Anyways, but yeah, it's great to see, we're finally getting on to all this stuff. And, like Mark said, we might be a little late to the party, but we're going to show up and we're going to be the life of the party, I think, to a certain point. All right. Well, we'll finish off our slides tonight. Crossing fingers that warm weather is coming. I would like to get my solar-powered pontoon boat out and on the water and get back at that. But this is interesting, is basically Xshore is a company, they build boats and they've done a lot in Europe. And now they're teaming up with this other company called Aqua Superpower, which do the electric charging stations, but in this case for the marine aspect of things. And they are combining their efforts together and basically showcasing to consumers and to other companies of how they can, you can have an electric boat. Here's where you charge it. And the one thing I was noticing too is like this 180 horsepower electric outboard motor. Like, I've seen some guys, modify a Tesla motor and put it on the back of a boat. There is a guy in Nova Scotia who I recently chatted with, who took his 20-foot pontoon boat and put a 150 horsepower electric motor on it. It was crazy watching some of the videos that he did, like how powerful these things are on that. But I think while we talk about our charging infrastructure, and I hear people say, we don't have enough charging stations. And of course, that's all being rectified and changed about. The boat industry is going to be an interesting one as well, because if just as an example, when I go to Little Current and there's a lot of sailboats that kind of come in, and any sort of, for that matter, marina you go to, there's shore power, that they always have shore power for these boats. So to put in now these charging stations for the electric aspect of it, it totally makes sense on all this. So, and actually right now, these guys are, showcasing their stuff in Palm Beach International Boat Show, happening as of right now. So probably a lot warmer down there too.
Yeah. It's interesting that people think about boating and you may not have access to charging, but guess what? you need those different marinas to fill up gasoline too. Like it's those marinas are where boats get their juice to run, regardless whether it's gasoline or in this case electric. So yeah, having both options at those marinas completely makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the idea of electrification, might expand even the desirability for boating. I know a lot of people who have had boats in the past and have decided to get rid of them just because of the cost and the maintenance of fueling, and the maintenance on gas boat motors are so high. Going to electrification reduces those costs, and installing the infrastructure that goes with that is just a part of that equation.
Yeah. And boat maintenance with gas is, especially with the bigger motors, it's not easy work. Like even I do have like still an aluminum boat that's a 14-foot with a 9.9 horse on it, and every season you still got to change the oil out of the lower motor unit, and that's not an easy task. I mean, it's somewhat easy once you get to know it, but it's still something you got to do on that. So yeah, it's interesting how this is simplifying things with having the electric, and I think these options are going to come about more and more. And again, as people, the people who originally get into this stuff are, the pioneers that are getting into this. They'll be hopefully working out all the bugs, so to speak, as we go along. But I think we're going to see this more and more. Shore power is already there. And to Mark's point too, it's like, yeah, there's always been gas there, so what's the difference, with having electric as well?
I hope they take a page out of your book, Ian, and not only are these boats have a battery pack in them, but also on those spots where you need shade on a boat, put solar panels on it and have it trickle charge your battery pack as well. You may as well. Like there's no reason not to. It just makes complete sense that a boat sitting in the water under the sun, not doing anything, why isn't it collecting extra energy from some high efficiency solar panels and putting that energy into your battery pack to use as propulsion?
Yeah. One other quick thing too, just to that note, actually, Mark, it's funny. I don't know that I can necessarily do it, but where you put your boat on the dock, my boat, yeah, it's got the solar panels already built into it. It's charging the battery, so when the boat's not being used, it's getting power. But I got thinking recently, is like, I need to probably get some new docks this coming season, and I got thinking, is like, why don't I make the docks even more stable, sturdy, a little bit larger, a little wider, and then put solar panels on them that could be because I have on the charge controller, there's actually 2 areas for input of solar. So I could literally have the boat's solar power, and then while it's at the dock, it could have, a canopy going out with the dock that's, very easily plugged into the charge controller that way as well. So we've got double the, juice going into it. So, and the same thing with these guys. They very much could do the same thing.
So. Yeah. And we've seen this concept on a larger scale in some other places too, like Vancouver, for example, their cruise ship terminal. When you're docked in the port at Vancouver, cruise ships are required to shut off their engines and connect to shore power. So the cruise ships are actually running off electricity while they're docked in port. That way, they're not spewing fumes into downtown Vancouver. So
there you go.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. For sure. All right. So that brings up our slides for tonight.
Very good. So we'd like to thank you for watching our little presentation this evening. If you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up on the video. Press that subscribe button and you'll be notified next time WREVA adds a new video automatically. And with that, any shout outs, Ian, that you'd like to mention this evening?
The big shout out I want is to the people of Ukraine. I have a friend in Kharkiv who, when Russia was at the border, and she's like 80 kilometers away from that area, that city of Kharkiv is pretty close, and that's where they I think they originally started going, and right away it was like, this doesn't sound good. And she this week she messaged me and said that she got her first 6 hours of sleep, and then of course the air sirens go off. And you know, in this day and age, and you know, this is not a political statement by any means, but this is 2022. And, you know, you're talking about some guys who have more money than they know what to do with, more power than they know what to do with. And instead of helping people, they chose to destroy the lives of people who had very little to begin with, who really just, all they wanted is just to live a peaceful life with their families, to, you know, go about their day. And it's, you know, it's appalling. So, you know, I commend the people of Ukraine, and I wish them, you know, safety, especially, and their friends and family safety. And that I hope that this war ends really soon. I hate saying this every night.
Well said. Well said. Eric, any shout outs from you?
I was actually going to make a very similar shout out to Ian there. I echo his comments. And basically, I'm impressed by the resolve of the Ukrainian people. This situation, nobody wins. Nobody wins in this situation. Nope. Everybody loses. It's bad for the Ukrainian people, obviously, and the people in there. But not only that, but even the Russian people and the Russian soldiers are suffering because of one man's stupidity as well, too. So it's unfortunate, and hopefully I hope for a soon peaceful resolution to this.
Well said. As we all do. It's been terrible to watch this over the last month, and I hope we can this can be resolved soon to end the suffering that the people are going through. It's not good for anybody, and I don't see any victory in the future for any side. So it should be stopped immediately, because it's just creating misery and death and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Well, with that, we hope for next month for brighter days on that subject. But we want to thank you for watching, and we appreciate that. And we would like to say good night, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on when you're watching this. And thanks very much. And we will see you next time on WREVA Electrifying News. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.